of Appeals. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:15 p.m. We're conducting the meeting via Zoom pursuant to orders of the Governor of the State of Massachusetts following the March 19th, 2020 orders suspending open meeting law for the purpose of Zooming. We are hosted by Littleton LCA, and they're very efficient and effective. So we ask that you keep your microphones muted until you're called upon. And when you're called upon, the others should keep their microphones muted. When the presentations are done, we'll call on people who have their hand raised. I think I have a moderator or a host that can see the hands and let me know who's here. We have tonight at the meeting, so far, regular members, Mark Saucier, John Sewell, Rod Stewart, and Cheryl Gould. And we have two alternates, Kitty O'Connell and John Field. And Kitty, were you sworn in?
I was.
So you were sworn in today. So one of you can be appointed as the voting alternate. I think.
Eli is here as well, just so you know.
And Eli Constantino is also here, and that's an alternate. So I think I'm going to call on, I think I'm going to have John Field as the voting alternate because he was the first to enter. John, you can stay for the whole meeting. Did he answer?
John, you're muted. He's nodding.
And do we have the applicant present?
We do?
Okay, then I'm going to open the hearing. It's scheduled for 7:15, and we might as well get right to it. And this is the hearing for dimensional variance. It's the hearing of last mile distribution facility at 151, 153 Taylor Street, Littleton, Massachusetts, for a dimensional variance from Article 173-61, I believe it was, for the new Amazon Last Mile Fulfillment Center site on Taylor Street. And this is a use variance. It's actually a dimensional variance. And we will hear from the applicant first. So may I ask who's presenting for the applicant?
I will. My name is Larry Beals, and I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Beals. I'm going to have you make your presentation, then we will ask board members if they have any comments, then we'll seek input from the audience or the abutters, and then you'll be able to respond to anything as called on, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. May I begin?
Yes, sir.
One thing I'd like to do is share my screen. We have a number of drawings that I'd like to present in a PowerPoint format, if that's acceptable. Okay, so now I will ask the question. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just take a couple of minutes and make sure I've got it full size. Okay. That for me is always the most tense part of a presentation, getting the technology running. So we're all set. My PowerPoint seems to be working. Let me make some introductions for who's presenting to you tonight. My name is Larry Beals. I'm with Beals Associates. We've been involved in the project for quite a while. And with me tonight is Owen Hall, who's representing the owner-developer Northbridge Partners. And also with me tonight is Matt Costa from my office, who has done a lot of work on this project as well. So we've been through a few different permits on this project. And the good news is I only have about 5 or 6 slides. And the intent of this is not to give you every single detail of the project, because that would take 4 or 5 hours, but to more or less hit the highlights of why we're here for this variance request. And it's all good. It's a variance request that will benefit the town, and I'd like to have the slides to be able to explain that. So this is our proposed project. For orientation, if you can see my laser pointer, the lower right-hand corner is where Taylor Street is. This is Monarch Drive. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, that's Route 2. And so these two parcels together comprise 151 and 153 Taylor Street. Brand new building in the front portion of the site, and then you can see towards the rear of the property a brand new parking lot. So I'll give you a bit of a history on the property. This is what it looked like as recently as July 2019. Again, for orientation, 495 is on the right-hand side. This is Route 2. Taylor Street traverses the top of the plan. And these buildings were originally built back in the early 80s. It was designed and permitted in the late 70s for Digital Equipment Corporation. So there was an office building here that was occupied by Digital, a driveway connecting 153 Taylor Street, and that also was a Digital Equipment Corporation building. I believe it was about 300,000 square feet. And the design was driven quite a bit by the landscape features, including wetlands. So that's what the site looked like in 2019. And then we began a design development process, and we began interacting with the Town of Littleton Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. And we had a number of hearings, and I will say it truly was a iterative process where we presented an original design and then collaborated with both the Commission and the Planning Board to improve the design in ways that were beneficial to the community. And the site plan that was eventually approved by the Planning Board included this building where my laser pointer is, and then the parking to support it. And as you referenced in the legal notice, this is an Amazon last mile facility. So the products are divided up in this building, and vans come out of this parking lot, circulate through the building and out, and they go out to deliver the goods to the communities. Now, what's most germane to this variance request is the environmental benefits of this project. And these are the items that were included in the project as we went along, and they're connected to the reasons for the variance request. So both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission expressed to us, and we were aware of this, that this is an important groundwater resource area to the community. We're in the Beaver Brook Valley. These buildings are gently sitting on a high yield aquifer. So both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission worked hard to ensure that we developed a design that protected groundwater resources. And included in the plan that you see in front of you is a requirement for a de-icing compound monitoring program. You know, if you look at this area, you've got the cloverleaf of 495, the interchange of Taylor Street, Route 2, 495. It's an area that has a lot of de-icing compounds, and both boards wanted to ensure that this didn't aggravate any problems that may be existing. To make sure we're not, we also agreed to install groundwater monitoring wells at locations where we can collect samples, and we have an obligation to report those data to the Littleton Water Department and the Town of Littleton. This section of driveway goes between two wetland resource areas. So it's pretty obvious if you spread salt on this section of driveway, chances are it may wind up in the wetlands. So this is actually a section of driveway that is heated with glycol. So it doesn't require any de-icing because it's a warm pavement and the snow melts as soon as it hits it. Also, concern was expressed about facilities like this. If there's trash in the parking lot, neither board wanted it to wind up in the wetlands, nor did the owner, nor did the tenant. So we have a program that's going to sweep the parking lot on a weekly basis, as well as pick up trash. And then there is guide rail around the perimeter of the parking lot, and that has a chain link fencing on it, a mesh fencing that prevents any residual trash that may be on the parking lot from blowing across the surface and escaping the parking lot area before it can be cleaned up. And then as we went through the process, it became very clear to us that both boards wanted to protect the groundwater resources, as they should. And so we in our submission, we were very clear in writing to the planning board that the owner is willing to accept a condition that once approved, the owner will subdivide the unused land from the developed land, and the owner will convey the excess land to the Littleton Water Department at no cost. We believe that the best way to protect land is to own it, and under the stewardship of the Littleton Water Department, this groundwater resource area can be protected in perpetuity. Prior to conveying the land, we will work with the planning board to ensure that the conveyance does not render the remaining land non-conforming in terms of zoning requirements. So what the board asked us to consider is, would we draw a property line along the edge of the development and then convey the balance of that land to the Littleton Water Department? And it seemed to make sense, but then we said, you know, the concern we have is if we carve off all that land, we're going to reduce the open space actually within our parcel. And that we run the risk of becoming non-conforming. So this is the plan that we developed. It was actually a little bit smaller, and there was less land in what we were going to convey out. And the board strongly encouraged us and coerced us into making it as large as possible, because the more land you can protect, the greater the water quality preservation that you're going to have. So what we're proposing, and we've already prepared an approval not required plan that subdivides along this blue property line that I'm tracing with the laser pointer. And the residual land, the land that's being carved off, is 58.4 acres. So the proposal and the decision reflects this, is that all of this shaded land will be conveyed to the Littleton Water Department. And all of this is sand and gravel. This is the Beaver Brook that is the river flowing through this large high-yield aquifer. So the plan is to convey that. And the planning board decision actually states that the validity of this permit is dependent on the execution and delivery of a mutually agreeable host community agreement between the applicant and the Littleton Select Board. And then the condition after that says the applicant shall comply with all terms of the host community agreement between it and the town of Littleton Select Board. So what made most sense was not to put the conveyance of this land into the planning board decision, but to rather execute a host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen. And so this is the parcel to be subdivided, and then we moved into the host community agreement. And again, I'm trying to frame this request for you, so I apologize if I'm boring anybody. But in the signed, executed host community agreement between Northbridge and the Select Board, it states, following the completion of the improvements shown on the site plan approved by the Planning Board on January 7, 2021, Northbridge shall convey to the Littleton Water Department to be used for Water Department purposes as determined by the Board of Water Commissioners for nominal consideration. And I'll tell you, the nominal consideration is zero. This is at no cost. Approximately 58 acres of land, substantially as shown on the sketch plan as Exhibit A, and you're looking at Exhibit A. The precise area and layout of the land to be conveyed to the Water Department may be adjusted if necessary to ensure that the project complies with the Town of Littleton zoning bylaw and all other laws, rules, regulations relevant to the project. And then Northbridge shall arrange at its own expense for the preparation of a plan creating the lot that will be conveyed to the Water Department. Such plan is suitable for recording at the registry. We've already done that. We've presented the A&R to the Planning Board. The Planning Board has endorsed it, and it hasn't been recorded at the registry yet because it's being held pending the outcome of this hearing and whether or not we can resolve the non-compliance issues. The problem we have, and the reason we're requesting the variance, is that there are, within the zoning, under the various rules and regulations governing open space in the aquifer, is that if we subdivide out the land, the retained parcel that we need to keep in order to comply is 53 acres. And that would only allow us to donate 34.9 acres to the Littleton Water Department, because we would be compliant with 30% coverage. And then there's also another provision in the zoning that under a separate section that requires 50% open space. And that gets us a little bit closer. We would have to make the Northbridge retained parcel 31.8 acres, and the Littleton Water Department would get 56 acres. The governing constraint is the 30% open space coverage. And what we're proposing here is that our retained parcel comprise 29.4 acres, which allows us to donate 58.4 acres to the Littleton Water Department. But at that point, we have 54% coverage, which puts us in violation of the zoning and makes us non-conforming. Hence, we're coming to this board to seek a variance, and what we're hoping that we're conveying is that we're really shifting land that normally would have been held in the Northbridge parcel to the Littleton Water Department. It's essentially 100% wetland. There are some upland areas that are not real accessible within that parcel, but we feel the intent of the zoning bylaw is being honored because the goal is to keep the land open and pervious, and by conveying it to the Littleton Water Department, that's probably the best steward of the land if the goal is to protect the aquifer. So we're hoping you'll at least consider that. And we are requesting a variance of the maximum impervious coverage, because in the Water Resource District, the maximum is 30%. In the Aquifer District, it's 50%. And if we convey this land, or when we convey this land to the Water Department, the impervious coverage will be 54%. So we will violate that zoning provision. And we submitted a fairly extensive application to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We listed all of our reasons, and you have three major variance criteria with a couple of subsections that talk about what you need to consider when you make these decisions. And in our memorandum and in our application, we addressed all of those issues. And I feel like I've consumed enough of your time at this point. So what I'll suggest is that these are the criteria that you need to consider. We address those in our application. And rather than read the memorandum to you, I think it's probably better if I turn this presentation back to the chair, and we can answer any questions or address any comments that anyone may have.
Thank you, Mr. Beals. Very nice presentation.
Thank
I
you.
just want to call to my board's attention the legal reason why we're being here, because it puzzled me for a little while until I worked through it. That is, as this board is unfamiliar with ever having to deal with a variance under what might be a special permit that lies within the purview of the planning board, I just want to call the board's attention to the section you're referencing, and that is 17361. And essentially it says what uses can happen in the Aquifer Water Resource District, and it references this impervious coverage and the limitations. So that is a planning board special permit, and they get their special permit for coverages through the planning board. But what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is nothing in the bylaw permitting the planning board to grant a waiver or an increase over the maximum, which is 30%, I think, in the aquifer and 50% in the water resource. So because it's going to exceed the 50%, this board has to vote on whether or not that dimensional variance can be granted. And then the planning board continues or is legitimated for what it granted, which was the coverage prior to the split off, and now we're allowing the variance after the split off. Is that pretty close to what we're trying to do here?
You nailed it. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay. So board members, now, do you have any questions of Mr. Beals? That tells me what a grand presentation you made, because this is probably the most complicated presentation I've encountered, and certainly the most complicated since December, which was our last meeting. And therefore, you did a good job. Are there any people here present in the waiting room or in the room that would like to chime in? I think I see the planning board chair. Mr. Montanari, are you still here?
Yes, and he has his hand raised. Mark, you're muted.
Still muted.
Yep, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so Larry did a great job filling in the gaps. We approved this, and we also, in our decision, referenced the fact that it was going to be over, and we approved it that way. But to make things cleaner and safer for everybody involved, Northbridge decided they wanted the variance as well. So they've been very generous and very easy to deal with. They've given the town of Littleton 58 acres, not only for wetlands protection, but for open space. I mean, there is walkable trails there. It connects to the land that we got from the large parcel that Sudbury Valley Trust has in the back, off to the left over there. Yep. And the water department wants it. And if you're going to have water protection, it should be given to the water department. So they've been very. My only concern with Larry's presentation was the word coerced. We never coerced. Northbridge was very, very easy to deal with. Larry Beals was very easy to deal with. We're getting 58 acres of open space for free that no other developer has ever given us a gift like this. I just want to go on record to say that Northbridge has been fantastic, and Larry Beals and his Beals associates have been fantastic in trying to push this along. Any other developer would have quit 2 months ago because of the hassle that you have to go through to donate 58 acres of land. Thought it was all done. It wasn't. Town council got in, lawyers got involved. This is the cleanest and best way to do it, and the town will own it in perpetuity. People can walk it, that you can get to it from the roads that are there, and also from Monarch Drive. I just want to say that we don't normally get developers that are that easy to deal with and that who listen to us. I mean, Northbridge was very good. I mean, Amazon is a has had a lot of bad press and a lot of bad things said about them, but they couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more accommodating on this property as Northbridge has been. And I just hope that you'll vote in favor of it so we can sign the A&R. It's done. It's sitting on our desks. We can't do it until we get the variance from you. And then Littleton gets 58 acres of water. They could have done it with less land, but they wanted to do the right thing and wanted to give us all the land that they don't need. So you don't get that too often in this town, and we should thank them. They've been a great asset to the town of Littleton. All right, I'm done with my speech.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with their hand raised, Janet? I would also like to comment that of all the variance requests we've had, this one is most interesting to me because the very purpose of the limitation under the Aquifer Protection Bylaw is to protect the aquifer. And as you said, who better to protect it than the water department being the recipient of it? So I think this is pretty much of a no-brainer. I do want to ask maybe Mr. Beals or Northbridge's representative. I drove down there today. It's absolutely beautiful. It's an amazing property and it was an amazing design, but ringing around the edge of it, I saw the silt fence. Is that the edge of wetlands and is that staying or will that be removed ultimately?
You just asked a few questions. A lot of the silt fence is not put on the edge of the wetland. It's put at the limit of work. And it's there in case there's erosion, you want to catch it early.
Yeah.
Plus there's another row of silt fence because there is some Blanding's turtles in these areas. Okay. So there's actually a turtle barrier that keeps them down in the woods in their habitat because you don't want turtles wandering into a construction site. We have an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission that obligates us to keep the erosion control in place until the site is stabilized. And stabilized means it's fully covered with vegetation and no more erosion. And at that point, we have to take it out because it's really the erosion control barrier is two components. One is a silt sock that's filled with mulch. The other is a synthetic silt fence, and that doesn't decompose. So we have to get that out of there so it doesn't remain after the project stabilizes.
And once it's in full swing, will the parking lot likely be full most of the time, or weekdays only? I don't understand the size of the parking lot.
So let me get an overhead view. The way this works is it works in stages, and early in the morning, most of these spaces are filled with vans, delivery vans. And there are some trucks that come in at night, tractor trailers, that load stuff into the building that's got to be delivered. And then in the morning, the first stage of employees come in, and this is an off-peak delivery. This is something we discussed with the planning board quite a bit, that Amazon does not want to put its vans on the roadway during rush hour because it's not efficient. So they wait for the rush hour to diminish and the traffic capacity open up on the highways. And so employees come in, they grab their van, they pull the car into the parking place where the van was. They drive the van along the path that I'm tracing with my laser pointer. They enter the building here, and there are rows in the building where they pull their vans in, they load them up with the packages to be delivered. I think it takes about 45 minutes, and then they exit the site. And as these people are loading, the next stage comes in, gets into the vans, park their cars where the previous vans exited, come back through. They stage out here in this area, and once those vans exit the building, then they pull in. And it goes like that throughout the day. It dies off during the afternoon peak hours, and then there are vans that make deliveries at night. So it's a pretty well engineered, precise movement of people, vehicles, and products through that building.
Thank you. Just educational. It's very interesting to me.
It is. It is.
I have one thing to add. It's just there is a fair amount of I'm Owen Hall from Northridge, by the way. Apologies.
Thank you.
Yeah, during the holiday hour, season, these deliveries do get to be more, and there is a fair amount of blacktop there and a lot of van spaces. So during those kind of higher peak times of the year, those extra van spaces will be flexed up to accommodate all of those deliveries. But generally, during those other kind of regular times of the year, there may or may not be less vans on site.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, members of the board, as was described by the applicant, we have to find the conditions are met for granting a variance. If anyone wants to discuss that, or do we want to take a motion to close the hearing and then we'll discuss conditions? We'll discuss the criteria.
Move to close the hearing. Move to discuss.
John Field, move to close. Second, please.
I'll second that. Mark Saucier.
All those in favor, I'm going to roll call it. John Sewell
John Sewell, aye.
and Rod Stewart
Stewart, yes.
and Mark Saucier
Mark Saucier, yes.
and John Field.
John-
John Field and I am an I. Okay, the hearing is closed. Board members, you want to discuss?
I appreciate the collaborative effort between the applicant and the various boards and committees. I think that the request complies with the standards for grant of a variance.
Yeah, I think that, if they kept all the land, they meet all the requirements without any trouble. So basically what they're doing is we met all your requirements and now we want to give you this excess land so you can protect your aquifer. And at this point, they're giving us the maximum amount they can give us. And I see that it makes sense to give them the variance to allow them to donate the land to the town.
Rod?
I have no issue at all. John just basically said what I was thinking. It's kind of weird that they give the town land and suddenly become non-compliant.
Well, I imagine it has to do with subsequent sales of the property or refinances, that every time they do that, a lawyer's going to be called upon to give a zoning opinion. And if you look at it in a vacuum without knowing the history, you would have to say it doesn't comply with that particular section. So the variance now would sit on the registry record
That's a good point.
to make it compliant. So anyone else want to, I think they made all the criteria. We could call it out, or we can just call it out in the decision. Does someone want to make a motion?
I move that we grant the variance to the use regulations, 17361. Is that correct?
Yeah, and just to allow the dimensional variance for the property retained to exceed 50% impervious as presented at the hearing and consistent with the host community agreement. How's that?
You said yes.
Second that motion,
Rod
please.
Stewart.
And roll call vote. John Sewell,
John Sewell, yes.
Rod Stewart,
Rod Stewart, yes.
John Field,
John Field votes yes.
Mark,
Mark Saucier, yes.
and Sherry Gould, yes. Congratulations and welcome to town.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and thank you for listening to the presentation. It's one of the ones you enjoy making because we're only doing it for a good reason. So it's great from that perspective. And just as an aside, I was involved when one of my first projects when I got out of college was that site. I was working, we were doing the project on behalf of Digital. And,
Okay.
you know, it didn't have, back in those days, it didn't have great stormwater management. So it's really rewarding to fix everything that wasn't particularly well designed at the time and then convey the land to Digital. So for me, it's really bringing it full circle.
How nice
And
to hear. And
I've
let
had
me,
a lot of encouragement from Mark along the way on how to do it correctly this time.
yeah, let me express my gratitude for the many gifts that you were either coerced or volunteered to give to the town of Littleton.
There was no arm twisting. It was given.
My choice of the word coercion was mostly for his benefit. I have found that negotiating with Mark, you may as well get to yes sooner rather than later, but you're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, you know. Thank you. No, they've been a great asset to the town. They were very cognizant of the mitigation that had to be done for the town, for a big company like this coming in, and the donation of the land for water, to keep our water quality as good as it is. They've been fantastic to deal with. I can't say enough nice things about Larry and about Northbridge as well. And
We appreciate it. Good
Mark
night,
and
gentlemen.
Mark and everybody, I have the same sentiments for the town. It's been a pleasure working with everyone, all the boards and all the staff. Everyone's been great, and you know, we're very pleased with the outcome. Thank you very much.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, going back to our meeting,
Thank you
we
all.
have a little bit of cleanup business. We haven't met in so long. So we have one set of minutes. Has anybody read them, and can we vote them approved? Mark Sauce, you usually read the minutes. Did you get a chance?
Yeah, I did go through it. I mean, it was so long ago. I don't remember the details of the meeting, but yeah, nothing struck me as being requiring any changes from my perspective.
Anyone else read them and want to comment? Kitty?
I read them and I, like Mark, have vague recollection of it, but it seems consistent with that memory.
And
Yeah, I agree. I read them and I have no problem with what they say.
Eli, you were here at that meeting. Did you read the minutes and you?
Yes, no issue with the minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as written.
I so move.
I didn't catch who that
John
was.
Sewell.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second that, Mark Saucier.
Okay, and then a roll call vote to approve the minutes, and I'll just leave the same voting members for this. Mark Saucier,
Mark Saucier, yes.
John Sewell,
Yes.
John Field,
Yes.
and Rod Stewart,
Yes.
and Sherry. Yes. Okay, I think Janet needs us to vote officers or not. You up for voting officers tonight?
Yes, please. In case we don't meet for another 6 months.
And we very often don't get to do the voting of officers every year and annually. So I would suggest we vote them for 1 year or until the next vote of officers to remain in office until the next vote. Is that all right?
So that way we don't have to have a special meeting, just that vote officers.
Right. Then I'll entertain a motion either for the whole slate or one at a time, your choice. Want to have nominations, please?
I nominate the current slate.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll second that, John.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to just re-elect the same slate of officers. That would be myself as chair, Cheryl as vice chair, and Mark Saucier as clerk. Can I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Second that.
I'm sorry, I just lost my place. The John Sewell was the moving party? And who seconded?
No, I moved it and John, I think, seconded.
Oh, thank you. Rod moved it and John. Okay. All those in favor?
Do we have to have the people accept their nomination or just just a question? I mean, what if you don't want to do it?
No, you're stuck with it. I don't think we.
Okay, it's fine by me.
I don't think we've ever required that before.
In
Resign
my
and redo it.
servitude goes a long way.
I suspect that Cheryl might have had a family situation come up because she was intending to be here and, in fact, reminded the newly appointed members to get sworn in. So something must have overridden her ability to be here tonight. I'm sure she wants it. So did we just vote it? Congratulations to the officers. Now I think Janet needs us to vote who's appointed to sign bills and payments, Janet?
Yes, so currently, when I have invoices, I send that to the chair. The chair signs approval to pay for accounts payable, but I need that taken as a vote given that authority given to the chair, please.
I'd like to.
Is the clerk a backup potentially?
Yeah, thank you, Rod. I would like to suggest that we vote both myself and the clerk as a backup to sign those.
So moved.
And
I'll second that too. John?
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Unanimous.
great. Then it passes. Anything else, Chad? Let's just chat a minute about how nice it is to see all your faces back. I was actually asking if at least I could go to the town hall and broadcast from the room because I missed the room. When is that going to happen, Janet?
Talking with Diane today, she said that Governor Baker has extended that through April, and they are strongly encouraging the boards to remain Zoom meetings until that point.
Through April. Wow.
And we
Is
have,
that to stop us from having an after meeting someplace?
I know,
No, you can certainly do that regardless. I think what they found is that residents are really liking the Zoom meetings. It's giving people who might not otherwise want to go out in the evenings or have a chance to get there to be able to participate. And a little bit is also that we've lost a lot of our meeting rooms, and until the library is completed and the offices in town hall are sort of redistributed throughout the building and the old library, things are a little bit in flux.
makes sense. Well, then I think there should be a motion to maybe replace next month's meeting with a meeting at a watering hole somewhere, John.
Yes,
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
We do not have any applications for next month, so we do not have any.
Take the official lead there, John Sewell.
Oh, thanks. You want me to pick the watering hole?
Might as well.
No,
We'll
Like
send an
going over-
email around. We'll send an email around one at a time, so it doesn't become a violation of the open meeting law.
okay, okay.
Can I entertain a motion to close the meeting?
I so move.
Motion to adjourn, John Sewell, second.
I'll second.
Mark, that was Mark?
Yes, Mark Sassy.
Boy, that didn't take you long.
I actually beat him to it.
Sorry.
I'm gonna give him credit. You got enough.
That's all right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, none.
One
All
thing
right,
I
everybody.
want to add is I almost
Mark, you still there?